In this problem, we have 3 times x minus 1 to the negative 1 plus 5 all over 5 times x minus 1 to the negative 1 plus 3. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is deal with my negative exponents. The 3 is not being taken to a negative exponent, so it's just this x minus 1. What a negative exponent does is it takes the reciprocal to the positive power. Okay, and so here the 5 is not being affected, it's just the x minus 1. So I would take the reciprocal of x minus 1, which is 1 over x minus 1, to the positive power. Okay, so here we basically have the 3 times a fraction. When you're multiplying fractions, your 3 could be all over 1, so it's going to be up in the numerator position. This exponent of 1, those don't really do anything, so we can just disregard those and actually just erase those. So we would have 3 times that fraction, x minus 1. We'll multiply straight across, 3 times 1, and then 1 times x minus 1. So what happens is the 3 is in the numerator, and the x minus 1, because that was to a negative exponent, is in the denominator. And likewise, in this we would have 5 over 1, that multiplies in the numerator, and then the 1 multiplies times x minus 1 in the denominator. Okay, so that's my first step, is to simplify and rewrite it without these negative exponents. Good, okay, now I want to simplify the complex fraction. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to clear out these little fractions in the numerator and the denominator. Okay, the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to multiply by the least common denominator, which is x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to take x minus 1 and multiply that by both the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so that means I'm going to distribute it times, I've got x minus 1 times the first term, which is 3 over x minus 1, and then I also need to take x minus 1 times the second part, which is the 5. I'm going to do the same thing in the denominator. I'm going to take x minus 1 times the first part, which is 5 over x minus 1, and times x minus 1 times the second part, which is 3. Okay, now what happens, just like up here where we had a number times a fraction, here we have, well, it's a binomial times a fraction, but that whole x minus 1 is the same as if you gave it a denominator of 1. When I go to multiply straight across, I would have 3 times x minus 1 in the numerator, and then an x minus 1 in the denominator. These will cancel. So that would just leave me with that 3. Okay, and then I can distribute my 5. So I would have plus 5x minus 5. Okay, my x minus 1s, this is all over 1, so that's going to cancel with my x minus 1s, and I'm just left with 5. And then I have to distribute my 3 to the x and my 3 to the negative 1. Simplifying this a little bit more, 3 minus 5 up in the numerator, we would have 5x minus 2, and then 3x. I'd have 5 minus 3 there on my number, so I'd have plus 2. Okay, so again, what did we do here? The big idea was rewrite without negative exponents, so that was our first step. The negative exponent took and made whatever was being taken to that negative exponent, it put it down in the denominator position. Okay, so we rewrote those, just put them in the denominator, and then that dealt with the negative exponent. And then our next step was we simplified the complex fraction. We looked to see in here, where do we have denominators? Where do we have complex fractions? And between those two fractions, those denominators are x minus 1. So what we did is we multiplied by the least common denominator of the complex fractions, which in this case was x minus 1. And then that allowed us to cancel out our you know, those complex fractions, and then we can simplify it.